You took your absolute best worker and gave them a promotion. You handed them a new title, a bump in pay, and a team to manage. Now, production is down, the crew is miserable, and your former star employee is looking for a new job. You thought you were solving a problem, but you just created an operational disaster. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, and wherever you happen to be right now. I'm Mike Voories, here to help you build a stronger team. Today, we're talking about one of the most common and arguably the most destructive operational mistakes business owners and leaders make. It's a trap of promoting your top producer to a management role. We do this because we're desperate. We have an empty management seat. We need someone we can trust right now. So we look at the leaderboard. We look out into the field or the sales floor. We pick the fastest technician. We pick the highest closing sales rep. We pick the most reliable foreman. And we bring them into the office and tell them congratulations. We tell them you're in charge now. And then we watch everything fall apart. You assume the person who does the work the best can teach others to do the work the best. That's a massive operational flaw. Leading people is a completely different profession than doing the actual work. When you ignore that reality, you hurt your people and you hurt your business. Let's break down exactly why this happens, the damage it causes, and how you need to handle promotions instead. First, the skill set shift. Doing the work versus leading the work. The skills that make an employee a superstar individual contributor are not the skills required to manage a team. They are completely different toolkits, really. In many ways, they're actually opposites. Think about your top-tier technician, your lead foreman, your top sales rep. Why are they great? Because they're fast. They're precise. They put their head down and get the job done. They have extreme personal accountability. They control the outcome with their own two hands. They don't rely on anyone else to cross the finish line. They are the hero. Now, you make them the manager. Their job is no longer to use their own hands. Their job is to guide the hands of others. Their job is to get results through other people. This requires an entirely different mindset. It requires extreme patience. It requires the ability to communicate clearly and repeatedly. It requires conflict resolution and coaching. A great manager has to sit on their hands and watch a new employee do a task poorly just so that employee can learn from the mistake. Your former superstar does not want to do that. They want the job done right. They want it done fast. They're not wired to watch someone struggle. So what do? They push the new employee aside. They take the tool or the phone or the keyboard out of their hands, and what do they say? Just let me do it. They step in and do the work themselves. They're no longer leading. They're just a highly paid worker doing the job of an entry-level employee. They failed to build capacity on their team. They fail to teach. They just become a massive bottleneck in your operation. And really, it's a double tax on your operations. When you promote the wrong person, your business suffers a double tax. You pay for this mistake twice. First, you lose your absolute best producer. Think about that top sales rep. They were bringing in massive amounts of revenue every year. They were a machine. Now, they aren't selling anymore. They're stuck in the office doing paperwork. They're staring at spreadsheets. They're managing vacation requests. You instantly lose that top-tier production from the bottom line. You removed your best player from the field. Second, you gain a bad manager. And a bad manager doesn't just fail to produce, a bad manager actively drags down the rest of the team. Because this person is so used to high performance, they expect everyone else to just get it. And when the team doesn't get it immediately, the new manager gets frustrated. They lack the tools to coach. They lack the vocabulary to explain steps they do intuitively. So They resort to micromanagement. They hover over their people. They criticize constantly. They focus entirely on the technical tasks and ignore the human element, which is leadership. Your team feels this immediately. They feel the lack of trust. They feel the frustration. Morale tanks. And before you know it, your solid, reliable, middle-of-the-pack employees start looking for the door. You know, you didn't just lose your best producer. You're now actively losing the rest of your team. You are destroying your retention. We also have to talk about what this does to your star employee. This is the part most owners and leaders completely ignore. We think we're rewarding them. We're actually punishing them. Before the promotion, they loved their job. They came to work every day, crushed their goals, and went home feeling like a winner. They had confidence. They knew they were the best at what they did. They had deep pride in their craftsmanship and their speed. And then you made them a manager. Suddenly, they're dealing with interpersonal drama. 2 employees are arguing over the schedule. Someone showed up late. Someone has a bad attitude. They're having uncomfortable conversations about poor performance. They're dealing with budgets and customer complaints that they didn't even cause. They were never trained for any of this. They are in way over their head. They feel like they're failing every single day. And that feeling of winning, it's completely gone. It's been replaced entirely by stress, anxiety, and burnout. They go home exhausted, not from physical labor, but from mental frustration. And they won't come to you and admit it. They won't admit that they're failing. They're too proud for that. Instead, they'll just get angry. They'll blame their team. They'll walk into your office and say things like, nobody wants to work anymore. Or they'll say, I'm the only one around here who actually cares about quality. And eventually, the stress breaks them. Your best employee, the one you wanted to reward with a promotion, ends up quitting. You lost them completely, all because you put them in a role they were never equipped to handle. So stop looking at the leaderboard. You need to stop confusing technical mastery with leadership potential. They're not the same thing. You must separate the two in your mind. When you have an open management role, you need to look for leadership traits, right? You are looking for the person who naturally helps others. You want the person who stays calm under pressure. You want the person who communicates clearly and respectfully, even when things go wrong. You want the person who takes responsibility for mistakes instead of pointing fingers. And sometimes your absolute best candidate for a management job is actually the 3rd best producer. They might not be the absolute fastest. They might not have the highest sales numbers, but they are incredibly organized. People respect them, and they know how to listen. They have high emotional intelligence. They do not lose their temper when an obstacle appears, right? Those are the raw materials of a leader. You can teach a good leader the technical details of a job, but it's extremely difficult to teach a technical genius how to have emotional intelligence and patience. Stop looking at your production leaderboard when you need to fill a management seat. Start looking at how people interact with the team around them. Start looking at who the team goes to when they have a problem. That's your next manager. At BR1, we see this play out constantly, and we're very clear on where the blame belongs. When a top performer fails as a manager, it's not an employee issue, it's a leadership issue. It's your fault. You cannot just hand someone a new title and expect them to become a leader through osmosis. Leadership requires intentional development. It requires training. If you promote someone into a management role, you owe them the tools to succeed. Think about it. We spend weeks onboarding an entry-level employee to use our software or operate our equipment safely. But when we promote someone to a manager, we just give them a laptop and say, good luck, keep up the good work. That is operational negligence. You need to teach them how to run a one-on-one meeting. You need to teach them how to give constructive feedback. You need to teach them how to handle conflict without losing their temper. and you need to give them a framework for making decisions. You need to train them how to hold people accountable without just doing the work for them. You do not just have an onboarding problem for entry-level hires, you have an onboarding problem for your managers. If you're not actively training your frontline leaders, you're setting them up to fail. And when they fail, your culture fractures, your retention drops, and your bottom line bleeds. Recruiting gets infinitely harder because nobody wants to work for a bad boss. A strong culture is built by strong leaders, and strong leaders are trained, not just promoted. Take action for your team. If you're realizing right now that your frontline managers are drowning, you need to act. Stop letting them struggle in silence. Stop letting bad management drive your good team members away. You need to equip them to lead. You need a strategy to identify the right people for management before you promote them. You need to use objective tools like behavioral assessments to understand who has the natural wiring to actually lead people and who is better suited to stay as an individual contributor. At BR1, this is exactly what we do. We help business owners identify true leadership potential. We help you attract, identify, hire, and retain the people who actually are wired to lead. We help you fix the root cause of your retention and recruiting problems, because better leaders mean stronger teams. So if you're ready to stop panic promoting and start building real leaders, reach out to us. Go to businessresources1.com. Let's talk about your management team and how we can help you support them. You'll find a link right there in the description to connect with us. Now, before we wrap up, let me be very clear. I am not telling you to stop promoting from within. Promoting from within is exactly what you should be doing. You just have to do it the right way. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about next week. We'll break down how to build a real promotion pipeline so you can elevate your best people without breaking your business. Until next time, keep building your stronger team.